Okay, so thank you very much for joining us. My name is John Phillimore. I'm the Executive Director of the John Curtin Institute of Public Policy at Curtin University. And on behalf of the JCIPP, which is our acronym, and Curtin University, I'm very pleased to welcome you to this very special event at this very special venue. So please turn off your mobile phones or turn them to silent. That's my first instruction, because you don't want to be the one who's just asking a really good question and the phone goes off. So just turn your phones to silent or turn them off. Of course, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and on behalf of everyone here, pay our respects to traditional owners and their elders past and present. As many of you know, JCIPP runs a Curtin Corner webinar series on Friday evenings. I know many of you are regular viewers of those presentations, and if you're not already, you'll be on our mailing list, so you will be in the future. We moved online when COVID hit, and we've stayed there, but I suspect several of you missed the chance to meet in person, and so it is really great that we can do so today. I did mention this great venue. I'll just tell you a little bit about it. The building where we're meeting is not quite 300 years old, but it does date back to 1909 when it was built to house the old Perth Technical College. And Perth Technical College first opened actually next door in 1900 in 139 St George's Terrace, which is also now a Curtin building, where the Perth Boys School was located. And eventually the Perth Tech College morphed into the WA Institute of Technology, and that eventually morphed into Curtin University of Technology and now Curtin University. So it's great that Curtin's been able to come back full circle to its roots by taking over the building here. And I've already spoken to some people who are attending today who said they used to teach in this building, and also study in this building. So it's great to have you back on familiar turf. You'll find the toilets out in the corridor here. You'll see them just next to the kitchen as you head towards the exit on the other side of the corridor there. Morning tea, lunch and afternoon tea, as you know, is in the salon room where most of you have already been, next door near the back of the room. And if there is a fire alarm, I'm pretty sure we go down the stairs and congregate in Brookfield Place out there. So before I introduce our facilitator and MC today, I would like to thank the Mannkal Economic Education Foundation for their generous support of today's event. And I was going to personally thank Ron Manners AO, but I don't know if he's here. Oh, he is here. Hi, Ron. Snuck in at the back. So I would like to thank Ron Manners AO and for his generous support of today's event. Ron had the initial idea, and it's wonderful to see it come to fruition this morning. Please note we are filming and recording the event, and we should upload proceedings to our website in a week or so, and I think we'll also send a link to the Mannkal website, and they'll also be able to upload it there too. So please, when we do have Q&A, questions and answers, please use the microphone if you ask a question of our speakers. It's not one of these things, oh, I don't need the microphone, I've got a big voice. You do need to use a microphone, partly for the people here, but also partly for when we do the recording. I'm going to now introduce your facilitator for the day's event and the MC, my colleague, Professor Alan Fenner, who just seems to have done a runner for a second. I have no idea why. I cannot believe it's stage fright, because Alan never gets stage fright. He usually likes to hog the stage. So, but I can say that because he's not actually in the room. But he'll be, I think, coming back in a second. Must be something going on out there. Alan, there he is. I just said you'd nicked off. What's going on? Alan is Professor of Politics at the JCIPP. He's worked there for the past, I think, 18 years, I calculated last night. He specialises in Australian and comparative federalism and public policy. He's also written on the Australian welfare state and economic policy. And he's got several books to his credit, and his most recent, co-authored with Professor Sarah Murray from UWA, is The Constitution of Western Australia and Exploration, published by Springer. And this is the first book-length examination of the WA Constitution, and we'll be holding an event to celebrate its release in the coming months, so please keep a lookout for that. He also co-edited a book this year on climate governance and federalism, published by Cambridge University Press, and other books of note, Interrogating Public Policy Theory, co-authored with Linda Bottrell, and Comparative Federalism, a systematic inquiry, co-authored with Thomas Hugelin, and also the leading politics textbook in Australia called Australian Government and Politics. So Alan's going to make a few introductory comments before introducing our speakers, and then we'll really get stuck into the event. So once again, thank you. It's fantastic to have you all here, and I'll introduce you now to Alan. Over to you.
Thanks, John. Well, welcome everyone. Fabulous to see the crowd here. We're all here to celebrate the 300th birthday of the boy from Kirkcaldy in the Kingdom of Fife in Scotland. And it struck me that surely he must be certainly Kirkcaldy's most famous son, but perhaps Fife's most famous export. But then I realised that just up the road is the legendary St Andrews golf course, where they'd been playing golf for 200 years by the time Adam Smith was born. So it's a good part of the world, obviously. Those of you who know a little bit about golf will know that that's a links course. I won't try and draw too many links between golf and Adam Smith. Suffice it to say, I think we could regard the Wealth of Nations as genuinely a hole-in-one. Sorry. I just thought we had to have a lighter start for the day. Though my friend Donald Trump tells me that holes in one are actually fairly easy to come by. Now, I'll just say a few general sort of introductory things apropos of Adam Smith before the real experts step in and step up. And by the end of the day, we will be thoroughly well informed on the question. And I really just wanted to say two things about Adam Smith to help set the scene a little bit. And one is, I've never written a book on Adam Smith, but Adam Smith frequently appears in my writing, not on federalism, but on any time I write on public policy, Adam Smith is always there. And I think that is testimony to the significance broader, not just to economics, but much more broadly to questions of public policy and so on, of the fundamental ideas that can be traced back to Adam Smith. And there's two ways in which it's interesting, when I reflect on it, he appears in anything I write or teach in public policy. So he always appears twice. One is, first of all, perhaps most obviously, is any discussion of how we rationalise and understand the role of government in society. And there's got to be a sort of a beginning point for that discussion. And for me, it always works best that it's Adam Smith. And it's Adam Smith because you begin with the fundamental proposition of the invisible hand, which leads to the default position of what, to use a term that Adam Smith never used, is often referred to as laissez-faire, or leaving the market to do its thing. But then, secondly, that leads inexorably to Adam Smith's discussion of the duties of the sovereign, that there is an important role for government in any market. The market cannot manage without the government in it, and he identifies three duties of the sovereign. And the third of those is the one of particular relevance to any contemporary teaching about public policy, which is the provision of public goods of one form or another, fairly limited range in Adam Smith's time, though he was a big and controversial champion of general public education, which was a rather radical idea in its time. And that, of course, then leads step by step to modern theories of market failure and a more expansive understanding of the rationale for the role of government in society. So that's one way in which Adam Smith always appears in anything I write or teach about public policy. And then the second is in a completely different chapter in any book I write on this subject, which is ideologies. And Adam Smith then pops up as being an anchor point for liberalism. And an anchor point for liberalism in a way that other ideologies, competing ideologies, don't really have, particularly because given that ideology is primarily and very much driven by normative propositions, i.e. propositions that cannot be proven wrong or right, the relevance of Adam Smith becomes immediately evident, because there you have in liberalism a proposition that is non-normative. It's a factual proposition that if you want to generate wealth, this is the optimal way to achieve it. And so the centrality of Adam Smith's ideas to liberal ideology is also something that can't be avoided. So I just mention those two things just to highlight the ongoing relevance of somebody who is now 300 years old to any teaching of these big, broad questions about politics and government and society and economy. Now, my second point rises from the observation that this is, and I'll reiterate, the 300th birthday. In other words, he's old. He's older than you and me, even. And a lot's changed in that time. Now, great thinkers generate ideas that transcend time and place. But at the same time, we always have to acknowledge that they speak from and to a specific time and place. And that applies to Adam Smith as much as to anyone else. And this has to be kept in mind. Adam Smith wouldn't have written a book remotely resembling The Wealth of Nations in 1876 that he wrote in 1776. Changes had been so extensive. Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations not 300 years ago, but in 1776, just on the cusp of Britain's Industrial Revolution that completely transformed the world, the single biggest event in human history. And so conditions, circumstances, questions, challenges, problems were all very different from that period prior to the Industrial Revolution to everything that follows from the Industrial Revolution. As I said, it is almost impossible to conceive of the same book being written a century later. It is a book of its time and place. It doesn't mean it doesn't have ideas of ongoing relevance and importance, but it is still a book of its time and place. Interestingly enough, if we jump forward another century to 1976, its relevance becomes renewed, I'd say, but renewed in particular in the context of ideological conflicts and competition, where Adam Smith is recruited for an ideological agenda that relates to political changes that have in turn been generated by the economic changes of the Industrial Revolution. So he is very much like thinkers typically recruited for an ideological cause in the politics of policy making from the 1970s onwards. So the final question there really is, and I'm hoping we have a definitive answer to this by the end after our experts have spoken, what specifically is the relevance of a long-dead white male who helped found economics, born 300 years ago? So I will leave our experts with that question. Now, just two other things before I do hand it over to them. First thing I'd say is that I'm pleased to say that Ron Manners has insisted that to keep this as authentic as possible, the menu for today's conference will be built around the traditional foods served in the Adam Smith household. So morning tea is going to be an oatmeal porridge. It won't be sweetened because mercantilist policies in the day made it very difficult to import sugar. So it will just be plain oatmeal porridge for morning tea. But you will be pleased to know lunch will be haggis. So we've found an excellent supplier in Perth, so there'll be a big haggis lunch. And then afternoon tea will be some lovely salted herring. So we'll all look forward to that. But before we can get there, let me just finally get off the podium and hand you over to our legitimate experts, our lineup of distinguished speakers, of whom we have 4 main speakers plus an extra. So we'll begin with Tony Aspro-Morgus. Tony, are you somewhere in the room? Can you make yourself known to the crowd at large? Maybe you could stand up, Tony. I know, but we want to know that you're the same person who appears on the stage. From the University of Sydney, thanks very much, Tony. And then secondly, William Coleman, retired from the Australian National University. Thank you very much, William. And then we have Lisa Hill. Lisa, could you please stand up? Lisa, where are you? Lisa. She's not here. She'll be appearing by video. So we'll have that before, those 3 speakers before lunch. Then after lunch, Michael McClure. And Michael is here. Excellent. Great. Thanks, Michael. And then at the end, our panel will be run, so Michael, from the University of Western Australia. And then finally, our panel will be run by Dr. Rico Stevens from the University of Notre Dame, Australia in Fremantle. Please show yourself, Rico. Great, excellent. So on that, no more silly jokes, and I will hand you over to Tony.